Welcome to Sacramento Film Works, where we bring to you all things film. I'm Craig DeLuz.
And I'm Amy Henry. We are so excited that you've tuned in today because we've got a show about a rising star and the journey that they're taking. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
To become a part of our live studio audience and to meet and greet film industry professionals, visit our website at www.ncfc.tv. Welcome back. You know, Amy, we always hear the story about, the person who goes to Hollywood and gets discovered and just out of nowhere becomes a star.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in reality, it doesn't really happen like that.
It doesn't happen like that. Not for most people. It's work.
Exactly. It's a lot of work. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Journey of a Rising Star. We have a gentleman right here from Sacramento who is a rising star in Hollywood. Matter of fact, before I introduce him, let's show a brief clip from his most recent project.
Earl.
Oh, vodka.
You can't smell that.
Langley can smell it. Top drawer.
Oh, God bless you. I'll buy you another bottle. Promise.
You bought me that one.
Sir, I've got a coded call. Potential distressed asset.
Throw it over to me. Put it up on my monitor. It's coming through our secure emergency frequency.
Someone's calling the home line.
Let's authenticate.
Night bomb. Sounds like an asset cryptonome.
Intelligence officer. Russian Navy. He's been an asset since 1986.
Nightfall.
This is Hilltop proper. State your mission. You are secure.
Situation report.
Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Michael Holley.
Good to be back in SAC.
Yes.
It is great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, just start off, tell us, how did you get into acting?
Honest truth, I was sitting on my couch in college watching BET. And I saw a show that the acting wasn't that favorable. And I literally was like, well, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And that's what actually started, me going on campus, taking some drama classes, and starting to dabble with it. But that's what it really was. I was really sitting on my couch, was just like, that's horrible, dude. this guy's making money.
You didn't have any desire for acting?
I mean, I was active in high school. Like, I did plays and stuff, but I never was that thespian in school. Like, I'm going to Hollywood. I want to be an actor. Like, I was, from a military background, and I was always raised that doctors, lawyers, or engineers made money. So my whole thing was like, I wanted to go to UC Davis to be an engineer. So it was just fun being active. It was more of a credential or criteria that I needed on my college resume to be able to be accepted into a school where I did the extracurricular activities at school. But it wasn't until I was like literally in the dorm room just like, are you kidding me? And I was just like, I want to try this. And they had productions at school and stuff like that, so that's what got me started.
And all the time if you're military, then you were traveling around, but Sacramento is your home.
Yeah, my dad was, he retired out of Beale Air Force Base up north.
Okay.
So I know they want to say that Sacramento's country, but Yuba City's more country. So I went to Wheatland High School, and I was born towards the end of my father's tour. Or his career. Okay. So it's like we didn't travel a lot, but I was more stateside. Only went abroad to Germany once, but other than that, he retired and I just stayed here.
Okay, so you've been able to stay here and build your career, and that's what we get a chance to talk to Chris about, is your journey and how you've been able to stay within Sacramento, keep your connections, and we'll go a little bit deeper into that in a few minutes.
Yeah, people think, like we talked about it in the intro, where people think that I just, all I got to do is get my headshots and go to Hollywood and boom, I'll be discovered. Now, how long were you in the industry before you got what you would consider your first major role?
My first major role? It was probably 8 to 9 years.
Really?
like as far as what people, you know, fantasize
Consider.
about as far as being on a movie set or a TV set. But I was bouncing. It was like a 2-year break, believe it or not, because I was bouncing in a nightclub in Sacramento, and Joe Carnahan was in the line, and I was the head bouncer. And I recognized him, and it was weird because nobody else reacted to him. Like, he literally was in line. And I know he would, now knowing him and knowing what I see down in the South in LA, he would have never stood in line in LA. But he wasn't complaining. He wasn't like, you know, do you know who I am? So when he got to me, actually I went to him in line because I had seen his movie Narc. And he had premiered it and showed it at the Crest Theater. And that's with Jason Patric, Ray Liotta, Busta Rhymes was in it. And I was like, you know, Mr. Carnahan, a big fan, loved Narc. He's like, oh, thanks. So I go to the owners of the club. I'm like, hey, you got a Hollywood director here in line. Can we get him in? They're like, what movie did he do? And I was like, Narc. They're like, never saw it. So literally, I was like, look, I'll pay for his drinks. I'll pay for his entry. Just let me take care of him because I'm an actor and I really respect what this guy does. So we get him into the club, sit him down, and he didn't want a bottle. You know, he was a blue collar kind of guy. He's just like, Jack and Coke, that's all I want. So he sat down, and that started a relationship, but I didn't have the opportunity to tell him then that I was acting. It was just like, hey, when you're in town, he's like, I got a house here in Fair Oaks. I'm like, hey, if you're ever in town, here's my card. You know, if you want to get into this club or any other club, let me know. So whenever he came back to SAC, he called me like, hey, Chris, can you get me in here at, you know, this club? I'm like, yeah, I'll make a phone call, whatever. And so he was working on a movie called White Jazz. And it was the sequel to LA Confidential. And so one night he came to the club and he's like, you know what, man, I'm not working on it right now, but you'd be really good for this movie. I wrote a script called Smoking Aces. And I was like, dude, I'm an actor. He's like, shut up, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, well, you know, and it was, you know, you don't want to be like, I'm an actor. He's like, do you have anything? And this is something back to where, you know, Dennis taught me, was like, always be prepared. Like, always have your headshot and resume with you. And I'm like, seriously, I'm an actor. I was like, give me 5 minutes. Ran to my car, got my headshot and resume, walked back in the club. Here, he's like, you weren't lying. I'm like, no, I wasn't lying. He's like, well, do you have a reel? And all I had at that time was a movie called The 11th Hour. And so I was like, I got that, but I don't have it in my car, but I can get it to you. He's like, well, man, this is good to know, even though I'm not working on it, but I'll keep you in mind. And so probably another year had passed, just us keeping in contact just with the club thing. And then finally he was like, hey, can you get a night off? And I was like, yeah, I can get a night off. Take the night off. We go out to, I remember, Mexican dinner. And he's like, hey, they scrapped the idea for White Jazz. They're putting it on the shelf. We're moving forward with Smoking Aces. And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah. And at that point, I got nervous. Because he's like, hey, you'd be great for it. And at that point, I said, hey, do you think once you watch because he'd watched the film I did, and he's like, it's good. And he told me never to act older than I was because I played the first African-American governor of California. And I remember Charlie Holiday was casting for it. And at that time, I could grow hair, so I had, they had me gray out my afro, and you gotta imagine, like, I'm this, like, 28-year-old dude playing the governor, and I mean grayed out. Like, the makeup artist didn't know how to do wrinkles, so you just basically got this young dude with a gray afro. That's what it was. And he's like, Holly, never do that. The acting was good, but never play that role again. So I said, hey, I've done a lot of auditioning in Sacramento, and I'd done Sac B and Thunder Valley Casino commercials. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for Hollywood. He said, listen, and this was the first lesson he ever taught me. He's like, it's not show friends, it's show business. He says, all I'm doing is presenting you an opportunity to audition, to compete. Mm-hmm. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But a lot of people die for this opportunity. So you'll have the opportunity to compete. Right. So right then, and he had told me a story about when he did Narc, a friend of his at Sac State, he wanted to give him a role, and he told him, I don't know if anybody's seen the movie, but in the opening scenes, the guy that plays the crackhead, when they're chasing him, it was supposed to be Joe's friend, one of his college buddies. And as a surprise to his friend, he goes, hey, you're gonna have to lose weight, you're a drug addict, and you're gonna be in a scene with Ray Liotta. They're gonna be chasing you. Ray Liotta and Jason Patric are gonna chase you through these projects in Detroit. His friend didn't lose the weight. And then Joe, as a surprise to him, actually had Ray Liotta come and read opposite him during his audition. and his friend froze.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And he was just like, that was my lesson in not, you know, if you're not prepared for it, you're not prepared for it. And that's how I got my opportunity for auditioning for Smoking Aces. And it was, I was geeked out of my mind. I was terrified, and he knew it right when I walked through the door. First audition was in Beverly Hills. I walk in, Janet Jackson, Heavy D, Aisha Tyler are in the lobby. And I'm looking like, you know, like in my mind, I'm like, yo, this is Right On magazine that was on my wall. Right here. Like, I did dance routines to Heavy D and the Boys. And Hev is right in front of me. And I didn't know at that point I was competing against him. And so I'm there, Joe walks out of his office, and he looks, he's like, Holley. And I look, oh, hey, man, what's up? He's like, come here. So I go in his office. He's like, you nervous, huh? I'm like, terrified. And he said it again. He goes, this is it. This is where you're hard working, where you wanted to be. This is what you asked for. This is what you wanted. This is what you work hard for. You need to go ahead and go do it.
So tell you what we're going to do.
Awesome.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to finish that story about Christopher Michael Holley's audition for Smoking Aces. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Sacramento Film Works is sponsored by the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition, which provides filmmakers an opportunity to learn and network with film industry professionals from throughout the Sacramento region. Join us each Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Access Sacramento, 4623 T Street, Suite A, Sacramento, California. We'll see you at the movies.
Let's go, Step Lobby. Get your ass up. Put your clothes on, girl. You acting like y'all on sundown. Y'all need to be on stopwatch. Kick rocks. Get it. Hey. Yo, is this Madam Alice? Hey, y'all got sick leave? Cause one of your hoes just got up. Hey, you forgot your hat.
Bring it down here.
Oh, hell no, you didn't do that, dog.
Okay, so before we went to break, you were telling us about the audition for Smoking Aces.
Right.
So please, finish telling us that story.
Carnahan said, you know, hey, this is the opportunity that everybody wants and that people are competing for. You can either represent Sacramento and put up and shut up, or you can mess it all up, but this is your shot. This is your chance. And the only thing I could do was I could only relate it to sports. So I literally walked out his office, walked out the lobby into the bathroom, started like beating my chest, slapping water in my face, and I'm just like, yeah, gotta do this, dog. Let's do this. Represent Sacktown, baby. Like, I was like hype. So like I came out like they looking at me coming out the bathroom. Like, I think that's the one I was gonna like tackle her. I'm like, no, it's cool. I'm ready. I'm looking at him. You know, I'm looking at him like, it's on, Playboy. Yeah, we gonna do this. And I went in there and I did it. It was Kathy Sandrich was a casting director, and she is casted for movies that have won Academy Awards. So I was really respectful to her, and I was honored to be in her presence. And so I did the audition, and I left it out there. And I walked out, and Joe looked at me. He's like, how'd you do? I was like, I left it out there, dude. Like, I was confident. And I walked out, went down to the lobby, got in my car, and went back to the airport. I rented a car and came back to the airport and flew back up. And then didn't hear anything for like 2-3 weeks that first time. And that's what you don't understand in the business. It's like, if they don't want you, or if you didn't get it, you don't get a call like, hey, you know what, you tried really hard, we appreciate you coming down. Like, we're gonna go in a different direction. They don't do that, you just don't get a call. So when I got a call back, it was like, okay, we're gonna bring you down to Santa Monica. And I was like, okay, I got a call back. Like, I literally celebrated on a callback, because in our business, it's pretty major to get a call back on a gig. So like, I went and partied that night. I was like, whoa, I got a call back. I was like, I didn't care if I got the role, honestly, at that point. To me, it proved that I could compete with what was down there in LA, because that's the one head game that would always mess with me, because everybody was telling me here, oh, you're not really a serious actor. You got to be in LA. You got to be in New York. If you really want to be taken seriously, Chris, if you really want to be an actor, a real actor, you got to be in LA. And so for me, it was kind of like a ha 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 to whoever had told me that in my path up until this point. So when I got down to Santa Monica, I went down and I was a little bit cocky. And I walked up and it was Malik Yoba, 50 Cent, and Snoop. So we're sitting, and Anthony Anderson. So I go up and I'm looking like, what's up? I'm sitting down like, man, y'all better recognize Sac is in the house. You know, so I kind of had like a little swagger, but it worked against me. I went in there, I got on tape, and it was the most horrible audition I've done. And Kathy asked me, like, it's a telltale sign. If a camera person or a casting director tells you, like, hey, do you want to do that again? Say yes. Always say yes, because that's telling you we didn't get what we needed. So I go on tape and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it again. It's flat. I walk out, feel dejected. I'm like, I don't really feel it. And I could tell in her posturing, it wasn't good. So I get down to the rental car and my phone rings. And it's Kathy, and she's like, Chris, something messed up with the tape. Can you come back up and get back on tape? And I literally said a prayer. I'm like, thank you, God. Ran back up, went in the bathroom, did the exact same thing I did in Beverly Hills. I did the chant. I went in there. I got on tape. My energy was right. And when she looked at me, she goes, that was a lot better. And so then I got another month goes by. I go back for the third call back, and it's me and Anthony Anderson. And I go and I read. And it's such a long process because you have no idea how many people are trying to get these roles. So it's like, we go in, I get the role, but I don't know it. Joe calls me. Month goes by, Joe calls me. And he's like, hey man, you got the role. They're gonna call you in a week. They called me in a week, Kathy, and I got it, and I was ecstatic. And that's what happened.
Yay.
Wow, that was a fantastic story. Well, looks like we're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a few more questions for Mr. Christopher Michael Holley. So we'll be right back.
Yep.
Sacramento Film Works is done in partnership with Access Sacramento. It airs on the first Saturday of each month on Comcast Channel 17 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99.
Hey man, excuse me. You see some punk Kanye West wannabe white boy come through here with a mohawk? All right, I'm gonna need your car.
Oh, you mean like the police commandeer your car?
Yeah.
No. Unless you're really officer Ray Liotta. You thought the badge was a slam dunk, didn't you?
I did though. I really did. Why wouldn't I?
Hey, the delivery was good, man. It
Oh
was
man, I
solid.
appreciate it.
I was
Thank you.
impressed.
Thank you. Got something going for me.
Hey,
So how many times you gonna tell this story, huh? A limo driver impersonating a cop.
it's classic, man. I'm gonna get a lot of mileage out of it.
I don't blame you.
I mean, you do the same.
Oh, in a second. You kidding me?
Hey.
And if that's the case, you might as well give the story the ending it deserves, right?
Hey, why not?
Now give me your car before I put a bullet in your liver.
Gun! Yeah! Get that mother...
That was amazing. Now, tell us, how is the industry different than what you expected it to be?
It's ruthless. It's brutal. It's cold. It's unforgiving. It doesn't care. Damon Wayans, I had the opportunity of having dinner with him once, and the way he described the business is that it's a vicious machine designed to chew you up and spit you out. And he smiled after that, like, that's my interpretation. But it is. It's competitive, and it's business related. It's celebrity related. If you're not bringing a certain value to the production, it's hard, and it's a catch-22. It's the same thing when you get your SAG card. You have to be in a SAG production and get SAG points, but you can't be in a SAG production if you don't have a SAG card. So, and it's like when you audition for movies or TV shows, it's like, well, who is this person? And they're like, well, we don't know him, so we're not going to give this principal role away. We're going to give it to somebody else. And maybe you can be an extra. Maybe you can get a 5 and under. And that's where it starts, and that's where paying your dues. And it's hard when you have friends that think they aspire to be an actor or be a part of this community. I always tell them, like, volunteer or go be a PA or get on a set or be an extra to see what it's really like. Because if you can do the hurry up and wait, if you can sit on a set for 14 hours, then, and you're like, this was fun, this might be something for you. But if you're like, dude, I'm getting $80 for this? And I tell them, like, when I was an extra, I've jumped in the rain for The Matrix. When they did the Zion scene, we jumped. We thought we were jumping in front of cameras and like, yo, man, you think we're getting seen? I don't know. They keep telling us to jump. Like, keep jumping. Cue the water. They're spraying water. We're like, yeah. You know, you see Lawrence Fishburne way off in the distance. You're like, yeah, he's not going to notice us. And you just keep jumping. And you don't see yourself. Or when they did the Hulk and they're doing the thing through San Francisco and I'm one of the guys that's the military and you got a helmet on and a gun, nobody can see you. And you're like, Mama, I'm in that group right there. Like, but you're really trying to do that. But that is part of that journey.
So Chris, that is a really good segue just to talk to our folks both here and then those that are watching. We've got so many people here in Sacramento, in the Northern California area, that want to do the love of their heart. And yet they're told, you cannot stay here and do it. These are folks that have kids. Their kids are in school. Their husbands are working or whatever, or their wives are working, and they're locked here. So, you know, how can you encourage them to continue to push forward?
How bad do they want it? I mean, I can put it real simple because I'm living proof. I have family here. I've never lived in LA in my life. Never. There's not any mail that goes to anybody's house in LA. My number's still 916. But if I told you, hey, I have this pen that I want to sell you, and it's going to cost you 10 years of misery, but if you, or I said it's going to cost you $500. If I said, hey, I got this pen, it's $500. You're like, that big, that ballpoint pen. I'm like, yeah, but every check you write, it'll cash wherever you write it. Now I just created a value to a pen. That's a 49-cent pen. But if I said every check you write, when you take it to the bank, they'll give you whatever amount you put on that check. It's about how you value your journey, how passionate about what you do. Because like I've been told, like everybody in this room, I've been told, you have to be in LA. You have to be here. You can't do it from there. And I made a lot of people believers, but I'm not saying that my journey is everybody else's journey. I'm saying that you don't always have to be on that path that everybody's saying you're on. Sometimes you have to blaze your own trail. And it doesn't mean do the Chris Holley story. The biggest mistake I ever made, I brushed off a kid at the Crest Theater. We were producing a movie, and he was just like, yo, and he listened to my story so much. He'd heard me speak before, and he's like, you know, I went to Access Sacramento. I did a place called Sacramento. I've been in independent films. I did this. I called Dennis Glasgow. Like, he went down the nines. And I'm like, that's great, man, keep it up. And I stopped myself, and I said, wait. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to brush you off. I'm like, I told you my story to inspire you for you to make your story. You didn't have the same hangups that I had. Like, I have children. You don't. Like, if I could have at 25 gone down to LA and slept on a friend's couch and pursued my dream, I probably would have done it. But I couldn't. I was becoming a father. So I had responsibilities. And that's what I had to do. So whatever it is, you still can do it, but also know when you're doing it, there has to be an end game. I think part of the problem with a lot of artists in Sacramento, they get caught up in the environment and they want to be a chief. Like, I'm making a film, I'm this cast director, I'm this producer, I'm a director, I'm an actor. And they never create that path or avenue to do it down in LA. They won't get in the car. Like, I drove down. It wasn't always Southwest flights, and I'm not flying first class now. I use my points. Like, I fly Southwest. But there was times I would drive the 6 hours for 30 seconds.
Right, yeah.
And get in my car and drive right back. Wow. And that's what you have to do. You have to be, if it's your passion, it's your dream, you have to create your own journey. But it can be done. I'm living proof that it can be done. Is it easy? Nope. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
If there was one piece of advice. You've given us a lot of really good advice. But if there was one thing that you would want our audience to walk away from this interview, one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say put everything you possibly can into helping you take that next step to achieve, to better yourself at your craft. And be open to take criticisms, especially from people who where you want to be. And just know it's going to be one of the hardest things you do. Like Vinnie Jones cracked me up because we got harder jobs than doctors. Because you put all this work in research and honing your craft and your skill set, you have a job only to when that job completes, you're unemployed. A doctor still can do another surgery tomorrow. We have to go through the process all over again. It's a hard job. So part of our reward, you get paid a nice amount of money.
Wow.
But there's responsibilities that come with that.
So for folks who want to follow your career, how do they find you? Website, social media?
I have my own website, www.chrisholleyonline.com. I'm on Facebook, Christopher Michael Holley. Got a fan page. My Twitter account is Chris M. Holley. Instagram is Game Fit, and I'm on Vine as Big Chocolate.
Big Chocolate. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Michael Holley. Well, that's it for this episode. Sacramento Film Works is a project of the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition in partnership with Access Sacramento. We'd like to thank our special guest, Mr. Christopher Michael Holley. I'm Craig DeLuz.
And I'm Amy Henry. Thank you so much for being with us. This was a fantastic show. We learned a lot, and our guest was just superb. So we want to thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining Sacramento Film Works, where we show you how film works.